Hello and good Monday evening, Chicago. Welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick, channeling my inner Steve Harvey a little bit here. Got a good one for you tonight. Lot to talk about. Obviously got to talk about the Bears, their big win over Tom Brady. Also want to talk about how the Bears haven't avoided COVID, like a lot of the NFL suddenly hasn't avoided COVID. And then the Blackhawks made some moves this past weekend that signal some things, some kind of sad things. I think we're gearing ourselves up for a rebuild a little bit out on the west side. The Madhouse on Madison might not quite look the same with the hockey team the next few months. But then the big story from earlier today, the White Sox have officially decided to move on from Ricky Renteria as their manager. Was this a smart move? Was this the right move? Who might sit down in that office and take over? Who's going to be the guy to push this team forward through the championship window and bring the Commissioner's Trophy home to the South Side? We'll take a look at that. We'll look out throughout the rest of the city, throughout into the sports world a little bit tonight. This is Chi-Town Weekly. Buckle up, everybody. Let's go. Once again, hello and welcome in. You found your way to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way real quick. Ways you can interact with the show. If you are listening live here on the Spreaker app, hello. Thank you for taking time out of your night. Log on into the app, join in the chat. We can talk back and forth that way. Hello, Larry. Hello, Taryn. You guys are always so quick and good to join in there and chat. Taryn can't wait till the Bears play the Rams in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about about that in a couple weeks' time. That show is just going to be an hour-long pregame show that we're just going to get to do together. I'm looking forward to that. If you're not listening live, ways you can interact, follow along with the network on Twitter at IE Sports. You can also follow along with this show at Chi-Town Weekly, IESR, at Twitter. If you want to follow my personal Twitter feed, it is at Adam_Karnick. If you're not listening live, or if you are listening live and you want to share the show with somebody else and not sure how to do it, of course you can send them the Spreaker link. I always put that out there on the Twitter feed, but also you can find the show on YouTube after the fact. Just go onto YouTube and search IE Sports or search Chi-Town Weekly. You can find it there and listen in that way, or send it on to somebody and say, hey, check out this show. That's always welcome. And now, the big news of the day. Earlier today, the White Sox made the decision. General Manager Rick Hahn made the move to officially, he and manager Ricky Renteria decided to part ways. Call it what it is. Ricky got fired. He had 1 year left on his deal. Finishes overall with a record of .236 and .309 in his 4 years. It's an interesting decision. Obviously, you shouldn't hold the record against him. When he came in, you knew the understanding was that this was a rebuilding project. The White Sox had finally chose to pick the lane of tearing it down and doing a rebuild, a la the Cubs, a la the Houston Astros, a la some of the other teams around Major League Baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Red Sox. We see how this goes, and the White Sox finally decided, yeah, this is the lane we should go. And Ricky was brought in to help oversee that. And now it feels like the decision has been made that, all right, Ricky, you were the guy to help get us to the championship window, but now that we're here, we don't necessarily know that you're the guy to take us through the championship window. Hahn said this afternoon, I'm going to paraphrase, he said that this isn't about this past season, 2020. This isn't about things that went on this year or things that went on the way the wild card series went down in Oakland. You know, the using 9 pitchers to get through 8 innings and the way he burned through his bullpen in that final game, or the way the last week of the regular season went down, where they went from being the top team in the entire American League to finishing as the 7 seed. This wasn't about anything that happened this year. In fact, Hahn even said that this is something that he and Ricky have talked back and forth about for years, the way that the White Sox are going to be managed through their championship window. Ricky had tried to make it known that he wanted to be here for the championship window, that he wanted to be the guy in charge. And I feel bad for Ricky a little bit. I know that there are a lot of White Sox fans who are happy that this move got made today. And it's, okay, you know, Ricky was maybe a little bit of an albatross on the team's back, or boy, I don't know that he's necessarily the guy to push the team through to get them a World Series. And what you hope, obviously, is going to result in multiple World Series titles for this team. You got to win the first one before you can win any other. But I still feel bad for Ricky. Obviously, now he's got a little bit of a reputation of being somebody that can get you through the hard stages of a rebuild. But now this is now 2 opportunities where he hasn't necessarily been given the opportunity to see a team through a championship window. It happened obviously with the Cubs when Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer made the decision to let Ricky go specifically so they could go hire Joe Madden. And now it's happened again with the White Sox, where it's, okay, we thank you, Ricky, for your service. You've been a terrific employee all these years. And Ricky, of course, was a bench coach with the White Sox before he was promoted to manager. He was Robin Ventura's bench coach. And it's kind of, thank you for getting us to the point where we can go win a championship, but we don't think you're the guy that can manage us to a championship. And I can't help but feel bad for Ricky a little bit there. Obviously, you don't know if he would be able to manage a team to a championship, but this is now 2 opportunities where he hasn't even been necessarily given the chance. At the same time, Rick Hahn's a smart guy. Rick Hahn is a bright general manager, not just one of the top general managers in the city of Chicago. He's one of the top general managers, I feel, in baseball. He's a very smart guy. He's a very deliberate guy. He doesn't necessarily let his emotions get too much in the way of making a decision. He takes his time, recognizes that this is the right course of action, and sticks to it. So when Rick Hahn says that Ricky's not the guy for the White Sox right now, I trust him. I like him. I think I can't help but feel that, okay, you're right. Excuse me. Something in my throat there. Sorry about that. Hahn in his Zoom conference this afternoon, he said there's not a timetable to find a replacement. However, he made it a point to mention that they're going to be looking outside the organization. The Reinsdorf family that owns the White Sox, they've been known for promoting from within, from rewarding people that have been with the organization for a long time. Look at the Bulls. Look at Gar Forman and John Paxson. John Paxson especially. Being somebody that once you're in with the Reinsdorfs, you're in, and you get to move up within the organization. Hahn made it a point to talk about that they're going to be specifically looking outside the White Sox for this managerial vacancy. And he said specifically that they are looking for, in their manager, they're looking for recent October experience with a championship organization. To me, that means you're looking for somebody that has been to the World Series sometime, probably within the last 5 or 6 years, and you're wanting to bring them in. There's two big names out there that instantly spring to mind when you're thinking managerial vacancies in baseball right now. One is A.J. Hinch. The other is Alex Cora. Obviously, you've got the recent pedigree there. Both guys were there in Houston when Houston made it to the World Series. A.J. Hinch was there when they won the World Series and when they lost the World Series. Cora was the bench coach when they won the World Series, and then Cora won the World Series with the Red Sox. For both of those guys, though, there's the trash can in the room. You can't avoid it. They were both there. Hinch was in charge, and Cora was his bench coach when you had the Astros cheating scandal. And you can talk back and forth, you can debate back and forth all you want of how much either guy played a role in those scandals. At the very least, neither of them did anything to stop it. And Cora, it looks like Cora took that with him when he went to the Red Sox. That he took the idea of stealing team signs and signaling that to the hitters with him when he went to the Red Sox. So, do you want to dip your toe in that? Obviously, the White Sox have done that already a little bit with Dallas Keuchel, bringing in Dallas Keuchel onto the team, somebody who was actually a player on the Astros, that while he wasn't a hitter, obviously as a pitcher, as being a member of that team, he benefited from that cheating scandal in the sense that he was on the team when they won. I know on the Bases Loaded show, they've talked back and forth, and they've put on Twitter. Blake, I know, is an Astros guy, and he's gone back and forth on Twitter about how, hey, they didn't win just simply solely because of the sign stealing. Well, it sure didn't hurt, though. Knowing what a guy's going to throw before he throws it sure does give you an edge. And you could understand why every other team in baseball is a little upset at the Astros, or a lot of bit upset at the Astros. So if you're the White Sox, do you want to open that can of worms? Do you want to bring those guys in? Obviously, they fit the pedigree of what you're looking for, of recent success with a championship organization in October. They're both sitting there. They're both available. Do you want to open that can of worms? I don't know if you do. It's going to be interesting to see if they decide to go after either of those guys. I saw, some other names. Of course, with the White Sox, managerial position, Ozzie Guillen's name always comes up. That name always pops up. He said specifically, it's not going to be Ozzie. They're not going to go to Ozzie. I think ultimately that's a right move. You want a fresh You want a fresh face. You want some fresh ideas in there. I also saw NBC Sports Chicago put out a list that also included Sandy Alomar. Alomar, he kind of checks both boxes a little bit in the sense that he's somebody that spent time in the White Sox organization, former player, former catcher, but he's also been Terry Francona. He's been on Terry Francona's staff in Cleveland for several years. They've had October success in Cleveland for several years. That's somebody that would make sense to talk to and see, is he the right guy? Is now the time for him to step into a managerial role permanently, full-time? So that's somebody to look at. To me, it's going to be really interesting, though, to see if they go after either Hinch or Cora. That's going to be interesting to go through. Personally, I'd like to let somebody else bring those guys back in. You can debate and argue back and forth on how important a manager truly is to wins and losses over the course of a regular season. That it's more October where you start to feel the importance of a manager a little bit. And obviously Hinch and Cora have both been there and had success with that. But I think for me personally, I'd like to let somebody else be the one to bring those guys back in and give them their next opportunity. I don't know that I necessarily want that to happen with the White Sox. I also see breaking news. I also saw just pop across my feed. The White Sox are announcing that Garrett Crochet, one of their young pitchers that got removed from that had to get removed from that Game 3 in the wild card series against Oakland with some elbow injuries, some arm trouble. He is not going to need Tommy John surgery this offseason. He should be available for spring training. So again, Garrett Crochet, pitcher for the White Sox, will not need Tommy John surgery per the White Sox, per NBC Sports. So that's excellent news for the White Sox as they head into their off season. They've got lots of things to do. They also are going to have to replace their pitching coach. They let go of Don Cooper today. They have said they're going to let their new manager pick out his staff. That's going to include the pitching coach. So lots of changes coming on the South Side. We'll wait to see what happens. All right, going to take a little break. Coming up, we're going to switch gears and talk some football. We're going to go over the Bears' win over the Buccaneers and beating Tom Brady for the first time ever. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello and welcome to the Soccer Scoreboard Show with your host Gabriel Montoya. This is the show for soccer, football fans, or whatever you call the beautiful game. Every week I tackle the latest and greatest news from around the soccer world, from the English Premier League to the World Cup to MLS, Liga MX, and more. You can listen to the Soccer Scoreboard Show and our lineup of fantastic guests every Friday at noon here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Hi everybody, it's Calvin here from USRN, here to give you an important message. Since 2017, we have done our absolute best to provide you with nothing but the highest quality of sports calls in the greatest of quantity possible. Thanks to you, our station has grown more than we ever thought. That's why, with your help, we would like to grow even further. Just think, twice the amount of your favorite calls, 24 hours of coverage, talk shows, play-by-play, game-by-game analysis, and so much more. That's right, USRN2 is officially in development, but we can't do it alone. We have set up a GoFundMe page that you can access from our homepage on the left of your screen. We also are planning special giveaways and prizes to our highest donors. Our goal here at USRN is to bring you the best calls possible at no cost to you. In order to continue to do that, we need your help now. Please check out our GoFundMe page, and if you would like to know how you can help, you can email usrnradio@gmail.com. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. This is Chi-Town Weekly. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Thank you again for taking time to talk some Chicago sports with me today, whether it's you're listening live on Monday night or you're catching it as a podcast later. Either way, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right. Da Bears. Huge win Thursday night. Big win. I had said last week that I thought it was a game that the Bears could take. But when they got down 13-0, I was worried, to put it mildly. I didn't think they had another comeback in them. The offense looked completely dead. They just didn't have any life to them. The defense was getting gashed up and down the field. It didn't look pretty. So to pull that one out was huge. Now you are on the doorstep of 3-2 and having everybody say, yeah, okay, they started 3-0, but that was really a mirage. That was really a result of the teams that they beat, not anything to do with how good the team really is. Now you beat somebody. You beat Brady. You beat the guy that a lot of people consider the best quarterback to ever play the game. So that legitimizes you a little bit. You're 4-1 now. You can't just say that they only beat bad teams. Yeah, it took Brady losing his mind and forgetting what down it was on the last drive, but you beat him. That defense still stepped up and made the play. It's not the defense's fault that Brady thought he had one more down to play. The defense still had to make a play on that fourth down and not allow the catch. Nick Foles played his butt off getting at the end there, that final wheel route to David Montgomery to get them down into field goal range was huge. Nagy, though, the day after was not happy. He was ticked. I want to read some different quotes from him here. Nagy's a guy, when he very seldom gets upset. He really is a very upbeat guy, and even when he gets upset, you can kind of tell it's, but we're going to fix it. We're going to work on it. We're going to get there. When he was doing this press conference on Friday, you could tell he was mad. What that to me really says is he's mad about the passing game specifically, because he lets Chuck Pagano handle the defense, and he for the most part lets Juan Castillo, the offensive line coach / run game coordinator, worry about the running game. So when he's upset, to me, that means he's upset about the way the pass game in particular is going. He said, darn it, when you play in this offense, you better be freaking detailed. And we're not a detailed football team on offense right now. And we need to get that back. So what is he meaning detailed? You need to, quote, you need to do everything exactly the way it is supposed to be done. If that means running a route at 5 steps and not 3 steps, or if that means running a route at 3 steps and not 7 steps, that has to happen. If it means to set a certain way and block somebody, that's what that means. If it means to throw on a certain time with your feet, do that. If it means to make the right play call at the right time, then do that as coaches, meaning myself. And so we're all in this thing together. I've heard Nagy say some things like this before, but usually it's in regards to the running game, where he'll say, yeah, the running game needs to be better. We need to do a better job in the run game. This is the first time I've really heard him really harshly critique the passing game. And he's not wrong. You look at where the Bears rank offensively now through 5 games. They're 26th in the league at points scored per game. They're getting exactly 21 points a game. They're 23rd in passing yards per game, 227 passing yards a game. They're 27th in rush yards per game at only 95. Some of that, a lot of that is the last 2 games specifically for the Bears. You look at where they have been the last 2 games. They've faced 2 really good run defenses the last 2 weeks, but they're just not running the ball well in those games, and they're too quick to abandon it. I'm pulling up the numbers as we speak. The last 2 weeks, 35 yards rushing against Tampa Bay and 28 yards rushing as a team the last 2 weeks. That's not even 100 yards total over those 2 games. Or over the first 3 games, it was 149 yards, 135 yards, 130 yards rushing. And 2 of those were games where in the fourth quarter you were having to make serious fourth quarter comebacks where it was you're down 16 points and you're having to come back, yet they still managed to run the ball and run the ball well. You didn't see that the last 2 games, and that worries me. One thing that I thought of when they made the switch over to Nick Foles, they went from Mitch to Foles, and Nagy said, now, and again, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was, now we can open up the offense. That was the feeling, was they were being held back by Trubisky. And they very well were. They very well could have been being held back by Mitch. I don't deny that or dispute that. But one thing I worried about was, does this mean that we're going to see a decrease in the running game? And I think we are. We're seeing a decrease in a focus, in a want to run the ball. That as soon as the Bears get down and they have a couple runs that don't go anywhere, Nagy kind of throws his arms up and says, okay, that's it, I'm done. Look, see, we're down. We're losing. Therefore, I've got to get the lead back. I've got to get the score back. I've got to get back. And we're not having success running the ball anyway, so let's just ditch it. I feel like Nagy is far too quick to abandon the running game. I was never a fan of Jason Garrett when he was head coach of the Cowboys. And one of my biggest beefs and griefs with him as a head coach and a play caller and a tactician was it was always way too easy to get Garrett off of the running game, that he would be willing to stop running the ball for you and you wouldn't have to take the run away from Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett would just stop running the ball against you. A perfect example, I remember the Monday night game where brutally cold. It was the night that Ditka got enshrined in the Bears Hall of Fame at halftime. And Cutler was hurt, so they had their backup quarterback in, and the Bears never punted the whole game. It was back and forth. This was the Mel Tucker days of defense where the Bears just couldn't. They could have had 15 defenders out on the field, and they couldn't have stopped anybody. Their defense was a gaping hole. It was injuries and a bad defensive coordinator and a head coach that didn't care about defense led to that. And the Cowboys were having all kinds of success running the ball, but they slipped up and dropped a third down pass, and suddenly they had to punt, and then the Bears got a 4-point lead, and suddenly Jason Garrett it didn't matter to him that he was having all kinds of success running the ball against the Bears. He wasn't going to do it because he was losing. Well, that allowed the Bears defense back into it because suddenly they could sell out on getting pressure on Tony Romo and attack him and have a little bit of success. I feel like Nagy is tiptoeing down the tulips of maybe becoming too Jason Garrett-like with his play calling. We'll see as they head into the game this week against Carolina. Carolina, you can run the ball a little bit more effectively against the Panthers. The Panthers average giving up 133 yards a game on the ground. That's 25th in the league. So not very good defensively. I mean, overall, defensively, the Panthers aren't aren't great. They're in the upper echelon of points allowed. They only give up 23, just under 24 points a game. They're similar to the Bears in that way of it's kind of bend don't break kind of scoring, kind of defense. Give up field goals instead of touchdowns when you're in the red zone. This game this week for the Panthers has me a little worried. The Panthers have suddenly, the last few weeks, they've figured some things out. I mean, you looked at them the first 2 weeks of the year. They not only were they losses against the Raiders and the Bucks, they looked bad in those games. They looked like they didn't belong, and then suddenly then Christian McCaffrey goes down, their best player goes down, and it's, oh no, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? These guys, this thing could slip away from them. Now all of a sudden, very quietly, they've won 3 in a row. They beat the Chargers, they upset the Cardinals, and then they went down into Atlanta and put the final nail in Dan Quinn's coffin. They beat the Falcons 23-16 last week, and that led to Dan Quinn getting let go by Arizona this week. So this is a sneaky one. Don't look past the Panthers here. You're going to need to go into this game and be prepared for a tough opponent. And maybe you didn't think that was going to be the case a couple weeks ago when you saw the Panthers coming up on the schedule and you thought, oh, this'll be an easier game. They've also been running the ball like crazy. They have put up almost 300 yards rushing the last 2 games. 168 yards against the Cardinals, 124 yards against the Falcons. They've discovered their run game with Mike Davis. Even though Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the game, dual threat running backs in the game, has been out, they've been able to run the ball. They've still had success. And Teddy Bridgewater is starting to come into his own a little bit as the starting quarterback. He's starting to get more comfortable in this offense with this team, with these teammates, with rookie head coach Mike Rule. Don't look past the Panthers. I think the Bears, I still feel like this is a game that certainly the Bears can win, but they're going to need to keep it lower scoring. The Panthers right now are averaging, putting up 24 points, 24 and a half points a game. They're barely top 20 in the NFL. They are number 20. So on the whole, they're not putting up a ton of points yet. And you look at their winning streak, even in their winning streak, they're still not putting up a ton of points. 21 against the Chargers, 23 against the Falcons last week. They put up 31 in the Cardinals, but they only put up 17 against the Bucks. This is the same defense that the Bears just beat. Yes, they only put up 20 points, but and the Bucks gave up 31 points to the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers still had a few more weapons at that time. They weren't quite as banged up and hurt at the time. But this is going to be a close one. This is going to be a tough one. I'm glad the Bears have some extra time to prep with it. And I hope they're going to be able to take advantage of that extra time. Because in case you somehow missed it, COVID has come to the Bears. They're now dealing with COVID-19. One of their practice squad linemen came down with it. Fortunately, the facilities were already closed at the time. It was after the game Thursday that the results came down. They made it through the weekend without any additional positive tests. It's sounding like they should be able to get in and start doing their prep work, and they had to rearrange their schedule a little bit, but as I said last week, this nasty bug has a long incubation period. I don't think they're out of the woods yet, but right now at least it looks like they should be able to get in. They should be able to practice. We'll see what happens. All right, so we're going to take a quick break and then one last segment. This last decade, there was a resurgence with one of Chicago's teams. A great modern-day dynasty got built, and it looks like that dynasty may be on the way out. We'll talk about that next here on Chi-Town Weekly, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
Welcome in to the Neutral Zone. I'm your host, Robert Kavanaugh, and you're listening to IE Sports Radio. If you like big, nasty hits, if you like slap shots straight to the neck, if you like it when the gloves hit the ice and the big boys get down, then this is your show. On IE Sports Radio, this is the Neutral Zone. May our shots on goal always be true and straight to the net. If they are not, may they be followed up, redirected, or change collected. Let's go on IE Sports Radio with me, your host, Robert Kavanaugh, and this is the Neutral Zone.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
college football? And do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. One last segment here. I wanted to go through the kind of sad news over the weekend. The Chicago Blackhawks General Manager Stan Bowman announced that the Blackhawks would not be bringing back starting goaltender Corey Crawford. Crawford was, in my mind, a huge part of the reason that they made any noise in the playoff bubble up north in Canada, that they beat Edmonton in huge part because of Crawford, because of the way he played in that 4-game series, and then he kept them alive against Vegas. There were games where they should have absolutely been blown out, and Crawford kept them in it. It was hard. It was hard for me to hear that. You know, Crawford, he's been the starter for the better part of 10 years. You know, 488 games with the team, most of those starts. 260 career regular season starts, 52-42 record in the postseason, 2 Stanley Cups. The guy can clearly still play hockey, and it was surprising. You had heard him say too that he wanted to stick around in Chicago, that he was willing to work with the team to figure, because he knew the Blackhawks, money is tight. You know, the NHL, of the 4 major sports leagues here in the U.S., the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL. The NHL is the one that, from a financial standpoint, probably got hit by this pandemic the hardest. The NFL, okay, yeah, the salary cap will go down 1 year. They'll be fine. The NFL will be fine. MLB, you're hearing all the owners cry poor. They'll be okay. They'll recover. It might take them 2 or 3 years, and they might have to actually open up their books. They've got bigger problems on their hand in the MLB. The players' union knows what's up, and they're getting ready to bog down for a fight. The MLB's got a lot bigger problems on its hands than the economic realities of playing in a pandemic. NBA, I'll save a little bit more for the NBA for my closing of the show, but they figured out a way to make it work and make the best out of a bad situation. And it looks like the NBA, you know, they're rising in popularity. They're getting more and more popular every day, every year. They're starting to push up there. They're not in NFL territory yet, but it's definitely feeling more and more like the number 2 sport in the U.S. And then there's the NHL, which is always under a cash crunch because of just the financial realities of having so many teams in 2 different countries. The Blackhawks are constantly under a salary cap crunch. And so Crawford knew that going into this offseason, that, hey, if I want to stick around, I'm probably going to have to be willing to take less money to stick around. Is it worth it to me to take less money to stay with a team and a city and an organization that I love and have had great success with. And it seems like Crawford, the way he handled the news, it seems like, yes, he really was willing to take less money to stay in Chicago. And the team kind of told him, here's our offer, take it or leave it. We're ready to move on to the next chapter. And so they did. I don't know how you replace him. The team has said they want to look at some young guys. They want to look at Malcolm Subban, whom they acquired in a trade with Vegas during the season. They had opportunity to see him during the season, and maybe it was because at the time they were still alive in a playoff push, and then once everything got shut down and they found out they were going to be in the playoff bubble, they wanted to stick with Crawford. But they had opportunities to see Subban this past season, and they didn't. Crawford played every single game after Malcolm Subban was acquired from Vegas. He never saw the ice. So even though Subban signed a 2-year deal to stay with the Hawks, I don't know how much at face value I take that. They've also got Colin Delia at net. We got to see a little bit of Delia while Crawford was hurt a couple years ago. Okay, I don't know how much he does for you. He played okay. He looked all right. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's probably going to be Subban's job to lose as far as that goes, but we'll see what they do. And then they also traded away Brandon Saad, one of their younger tradable pieces, a guy who's had, a lot of success with the organization and has been with the organization a couple of times now. They chose to move on from him. This feels like they don't want to say it. This feels like they're gearing up for a rebuild, that if there are players that can be traded, if there are contracts that can be moved, Bowman's going to do what he can to try and move those guys. They traded Saad to the Avalanche, a division rival. So what did they get? What did they get back? They got a couple of defensive men that they got back. Nikita Zadorov from the Avalanche. He's spent some time in the NHL. I know Patrick Kane said the last couple of days that he's glad that now he doesn't have to go up against Zadorov. His numbers are okay. He's in his mid-20s. He's played enough now that I think you have a bit of a feel for him and what he gives you as a player. He's a guy in his mid-20s that he's spent a lot of time with Colorado and never really quite, he's not a huge scorer, 18 goals total, just 59 points in 289 career games with Colorado, 5 years with Colorado. So not a ton of scoring there, a plus minus overall of 4 in the last 5 years. So okay, so he gives you better than he's on the goal. He's on the ice for more goals than he gives up. That's important for a defenseman. He's not a huge minutes eater. He's not like a young version of Duncan Keith where he's going to be out there on the ice for tons of time. He's consistently out there for average time on ice is anywhere from 17 minutes to 19 minutes on average. His career average is about 18 minutes of ice time per game. So he's not necessarily one of your top 4 defensive-men pairings. I don't know. It's an okay move, I guess. They also got a minor league defensive man So then they also, free agency hits, and they let kind of the first wave of free agency go through before they make any signings. They brought in they finally yesterday brought in Matthias Janmark, and then today brought in another forward from Carolina, Lucas Wallmark. They're going young, and you heard Bowman talk last week in the decision to not re-sign Crawford, that they want to see what they've got in some of their youth, that they think it's time for the youth to give a chance. Well, another way of saying you want to see, what your young guys can do is you also want to see what your inexpensive players, your cheap players, what they can do. Jonathan Taves was very forthright, and he said he was caught off guard by it. He didn't see it coming, and you can understand it. This is a team that made the playoffs, yes, albeit it took a pandemic and they had to expand the playoffs to get them in. But then they beat a very good Edmonton team to earn a spot into the playoffs proper. And so I don't know that everybody was necessarily expecting that a rebuild was coming, but that is what's going on, is they're definitely gearing up for a rebuild. So get ready for that out on the west side. All right, that's been our show tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Some other notes, the NBA wrapped up last night with its championship. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers, winning their 17th championship, now tied for the Celtics. Also, just kudos to the NBA in general for being able to pull off the bubble down in Orlando. I had my doubts. I will be very honest. I thought that they were going to be that it was going to blow up in their faces, and it did not. They got through the bubble. Nobody got sick. Nobody brought it in with them. They kept everybody healthy. They made it work. It was a lot of hard work. Kudos to Adam Silver of the NBA and to all those players and coaches for making it happen. Congratulations on a job very, very well done. I hope you never have to go through it again. Coming up next here on IE Sports Radio, immediately following me, Mike Pratt is going to be in with Let's Whine About Sports. Definitely check in with that. He does an awesome job with that show. I was actually texting with Mike yesterday. It may not always sound like it when I do the show, but I am a guy that tries to plan ahead, and Mike was very helpful in helping me figure out some wine pairings to go with Thanksgiving coming up here in a few weeks. Yes, that is around the corner. So definitely give Mike's show a listen. After him is going to be Bases Loaded. Coming up, they're going to be talking, I'm sure, about the American League Championship Series, the National League Championship Series getting started, getting rolling, getting those underway. And then over on USRN, they've got Monday Night Football tonight. The Chargers are playing. I'm sure Taryn is going to be excited for that, keeping an eye on his Chargers and how they're doing. So keep an eye out. Check into USRN as they've got Seth Eves has got the call for Chargers and Saints coming up here in just a little bit. That's all for this week. Thank you again so much for tuning in. My name is Adam Karnick. Thank you very much for talking Chicago sports with me. A lot of news tonight. Hopefully next week we're talking a Bears win.